Going to call this meeting to order on Monday, June the 3rd, 6:30 p.m. Roll call, and we have a certification of a quorum. Jennifer Hendricks is our only absentee. Now that goes to introduction of agenda and format of hearing.
Thanks, Chair. So for each item tonight, we'll have a call to order followed by staff report, and the applicant will present their case. Afterwards, public will make comment in support or opposition. At that time, please state your name and address for the record. Be brief and to the point within a 3-minute time frame. Following that, commission and staff will have their discussion. The commission will vote to recommend approval as presented, approval with conditions, denial of the request, or to table the item. Things that are heard tonight will go to the City Council for consideration on the Monday, June 24th meeting. So on the order of the agenda, you've got consent agenda. First has the excusal of absence for Commissioner Kuhn from the May 20th meeting, then approval of the meeting minutes for May 20th. And then we have 3 new items on for new business. First is a zone change for amendments to the Ivy District Plan Development that's at the southeast corner of Spectrum Boulevard and Ivy Park Terrace. Following a zone change for neighborhood services to Town Home. This is located at the southeast corner of Woody Road and Orange Street. And then a zone change for amendments to the Province Village Plan Development. That is at 2701 Pearland Parkway. With that, Chair, I'll pass back to you for the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Commissioner McDonald, so moved.
Commissioner Kuhn, second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor, sign by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign, carries 6-0. That moves us, items removed from consent agenda. There was none. Moving on to new business. First order is consideration and possible action zone change application, zone 2407, public hearing, a request by Stephen Ritchie, Suiba Consulting, Inc., applicant on behalf of American Modern Green Development, Houston, LLC, owner for approval of amendments to the Ivy District Plan Development and approximately 6.198 acres of land located at a southeast corner of Spectrum Boulevard and Ivy Park. Can I have a motion to approve in a second?
Commissioner Fortes, motion to approve.
Commissioner Kuhn, second.
Okay, thank you. And moving that, we'll move it back to staff report.
Thank you, Chair. Let me introduce Patrick Bauer to make the staff report. Patrick, take it away.
Thank you, Martin. Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. As mentioned, this request is for amendments to the Ivy District PD on approximately 6.19 acres of land, and specifically it's for one of the tracts within the Ivy District. And originally this tract was designated for the condo / continuing care retirement community use. Now they are proposing with this amendment to change that to more of like a multifamily option that is similar to what's on tract 1, which I'll show in further slides. So the location, as mentioned, is at the southeast corner of Spectrum Boulevard and Ivy Park Terrace, and the future land use for the property is the Lower Kirby Urban Center designation. And to date, staff has not received any comments in favor or against the request. So as mentioned, the subject property is within the Ivy District PD, and you can see that yellow outlined area, that's tract 2, which is the subject of this PD amendment. But then the outlined red area is the entirety of the Ivy District PD. And so the subject property is adjacent to pretty much the Ivy District PD to its south, east, and west. And then to the north is the Promenade Shops Plan Development District. And looking at the future land use designation of the surrounding properties, we see that most of the area within the Ivy District PD is that lower Kirby urban center with some open space designation to the southeast portion of the PD. And then to the north, where the Promenade Shops PD is also that lower Kirby urban center designation. And so looking at an aerial view of the property as well as the surrounding properties, we see that there is actually the multifamily, which is currently under construction to the west, and that is Tract 1 or Phase 1 of the Ivy District PD. And I believe it's the next slide or the one after, we'll actually show an image of what's being developed there currently. And then to the south is the existing park and detention, which is a part of that PD. And then to the east is an undeveloped portion of the PD, which is to be developed in the coming phases. And then to the north is mostly undeveloped land with just out of reach of the image is the Bass Pro Shops, which is at the corner of 288 and the Beltway. So looking at a history of the property, it was originally annexed into the city in 1999. It was originally planned for the water lights development, but that project did not advance and ended up being foreclosed on in 2010. Then the property was originally approved for the Modern Green Ivy PD district or designation in 2014. And then in 2016, the zoning of the property was changed again to a new PD, which is called the Ivy District PD designation. And that is a specific PD where Tract 2 was designated for that condo/continuing care retirement community use, with the project using similar materials and fenestration and aesthetic as the multifamily project, which is to be currently being developed on Tract 1. And then a little more recently, the subject property was platted in 2019 as Tract 2 within the final plat of Modern Green Ivy District. And as mentioned, the subject property is currently undeveloped, but the utility infrastructure and roadways within the PD are constructed and in place. And so as you can see, this is a view of Tract 2 if you were standing at that park, which is kind of the southern portion of the PD. The left-hand side of the image is actually that existing multifamily, which is currently going through construction, and that's on Tract 1. And this is what the proposed product would be similar to. And you can also see kind of the infrastructure that's in place along the roadway with the lamp as well as the roadway. And so here's the original site plan that was in the PD, and Tract 2 is outlined in yellow. And this was the tract that was designated for that condo/continuing care retirement community. And on that lot, they had a parking garage to service that use as well as some amenities. And the overall units for that was 366 units. And this was kind of broken up into different memory care, independent living, assisted living, different uses like that. And additionally, to note is that there was some retail space along Ivy Park Terrace, which is that roadway that they share with Tract 1 that kind of mirrored what was being developed on Tract 1. So originally there was retail space proposed along the frontage of the building. And so moving to the site plan within the PD amendment, Tract 2 is still outlined in yellow, and you can see the shape of the building still looks fairly similar, but now the proposed use for the building is actually just a multifamily option with amenities and the same parking garage. But the units have been reduced a little. There's 359 units being proposed. And on the next slide, I'll show kind of a general breakdown of those units. And additionally, it should be noted that the proposed retail space along Ivy Park Terrace is to remain, so it'll kind of mirror what is on Tract 1 currently. So it'll still keep that same feel along the streetscape. And so this is a breakdown of all the different kinds of units that they're proposing, from efficiency to 1 bedroom to 2 bedroom and then to 3 bedroom. So there's a variety of units that they're proposing within the development. And additionally, these were the original images provided within the PD. And this is kind of what the current Tract 1 is being developed as. And this is what the applicant is proposing to kind of mirror on Tract 2 to develop a multifamily that's very similar to what's being developed in Tract 1. And so, reviewing the proposed PD amendment based on some of the review criteria, staff found the proposed PD amendment is consistent with the Lower Kirby Urban Center designation, as it's intended to kind of provide a diverse regional destination that includes significant employment uses along Kirby, but specifically the kind of pedestrian-oriented portion is kind of what this development is providing. It's providing an area for people to live and also be able to walk around and go to the park and such things as that. And then in terms of the thoroughfare plan, the subject property has frontage along Spectrum Boulevard, which is a secondary thoroughfare with sufficient width. And additionally, the property also has frontage on 3 roadways that are kind of interior to the PD, which are all designated as a local street. And the property also has access to city utilities. So reviewing the proposed PD amendment based on the approval criteria, staff found that the request met all 7 of the criteria for approving the PD amendment. And as mentioned, the proposed amendment is consistent with the future land use plan as well. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the amendment to the Ivy District PD. And that concludes staff's report.
Thank you. That brings us to the applicant's presentation. Is the applicant here? Please give your name and your address for the record, please. No, go to the platform, up there, the podium.
My name is Stephen Ritchie, and I'm with Suba USA, and 8235 El Rio, Houston, Texas, 77054. And we represent American Modern Green Development Houston, LLC, in this development. And they've been working on this project since their purchase of the land in 2012. So we're finally to the point where we can realize a finished development after about 14 years of their ownership of that land. So what we're working to with this PD is to continue the development of the property, and this is the best use of that property that we can come up with, because Modern Green has diligently tried to find operators for CCRCs, and with no avail, that development type is not being furthered at this point in time. And so that's where it's brought us to this point of additional phase 2 of the existing property that we have on track 1. And we feel that it meets all of the requirements for the city and the PD. And like any questions you may have of us in this.
Okay, thank you. We can't dialogue right now, but we'll if we have any questions and stuff, we'll call you back to the podium.
Thank you.
That opens it up for persons wishing to speak for or against this amendment item. Item, actually, yeah. Calling for a second time. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this item? Seeing none, that opens it up for staff discussion. Commission discussion. Anyone?
Martin, just a question about this area. Obviously has been important to the work of the Pearland Economic Development Corporation. So have they given any feedback? Are they supportive of this?
Well, the Economic Development Corporation hasn't made a formal choice on this. They are supportive of Modern Green moving forward in Suba with their current development.
I would say generally I'm for the amendment. I understand the problems they've had trying to find the use that they originally wanted for that site. I want to make sure we protect the outlier, which has been proposed for office. I think that's still a good location. I guess my one thought is there's a whole lot of apartment units in the area that we we don't have anything else right now. Is there discussions about anything else coming in that area to generate traffic or?
I would say that, we haven't heard anything solid yet, but we're always hopeful that round 2 or 3 or 12 of discussions take place for that area.
And y'all are confident, I guess, in the way that obviously the current one's still under construction. Have you started pre-leasing? Are you seeing good numbers? It's a pretty big leap to go ahead and start building the second structure.
Pre-leasing will probably start later this month and probably early next month. We look forward to having a robust leasing for that project. It's unique to this area, so that's what we're hopeful that it will suffice for numbers coming in. And by the time this starts construction, we probably look forward to a year before we can even start with permitting and generation of leasing on the existing project.
All right, thank you.
I guess a question just for staff in general, if somebody knows, and it kind of tells into what Commissioner McDonald was saying, with the EDC being on board, were there any incentives given to this group for their project as first proposed? We know of, was Spectrum built and paid for by the developer or by EDC funds?
And I'd also lean to Stephen. Are you aware of any EDC funds or that would have gone to the project? I'm not familiar with any. With it being multifamily, it's not a job creator.
I know that Modern Green put money towards the roads and some of the lights in the park. So I mean, they're invested in this property.
Okay, good to know. I did notice in our, I'm going to say the word packet. It's really not a packet. We get an email and with a link. I recall there being a lot of, I looked it over this weekend, a lot of changes, and it was hard for me to follow some of them. There was some red ink versus black ink, and I didn't, are y'all being the staff, are y'all okay with the changes that were proposed?
So generally, a lot of the red ink that is on the set of plans that were before you were showing things that were completed. So it was, I'm going to say this and it's going to sound a little tongue-in-cheek, but it was good red ink because they have completed a lot of the road infrastructure. Mm-hmm. They've got the pond built. They've got the park built. They've got the upgraded lights, and they're a lot of the way forward with phase 1. I don't want to say almost complete because that puts a little too much expectation out there, but that's what that red ink was generally showing.
All right, are you all? They are going to follow, I'm assuming, if approved, they would follow the guidelines for the original phase 1 would be incorporated then into this phase 2. So we'll have guaranteed whether Suba continues, and I understand Suba is an admired multifamily developer, but if, like you said, a year from now, y'all haven't got permitted and your rentals don't go well and y'all back out, well, now we have a PD change and somebody else could come in, maybe less of a developed multifamily developer in quality. Do you feel confident that you know where I'm going with this? You can cut me off anytime. Are you confident that it'll still be built to the standards the first one is?
So the Ivy District is a fairly unique plan development. It lays out some very specific language on materials, on look and style of the buildings, on the public realm being the sidewalk, from curb to sidewalk to the edge of the building,
Streetscape.
streetscape, exactly. All of that is very detailed and very specific. It's near a form-based code, but it's not a full form-based code. So that I have pretty high level of confidence that either that exact product would be built or you would see another plan development amendment before you.
Okay.
And Commissioner Fiorta, it's just kind of a tip of the hat to Suba. So you'll notice some of the dates in this plan set are 2014, 2016, and then in 2020 they started permitting. Well, in 2020 the world changed, and they followed through on a $40 million project. And so just as far as, I know you know they're very reputable. I mean, arguably the best in the business when it comes to multifamily, but more just some confidence there.
Right. I'm a lot of my comments from this point forward will not be directed at the developer themselves, but then the PD itself. I was writing pros and cons this weekend. Of course, I left my paper on my desk at home, and so I just jotted down as much as I could remember. For pros, let me start out with the caveat that Pearland has not historically been a very favorable town for multifamily. I'm sure you would agree to that. But this one makes sense because it's in HISD. So some of the comments we've all heard regarding what it's going to do to our school district, et cetera. This is HISD, and I don't think, I'm assuming you would have an answer to, and you don't have to even answer it, but I would assume that these multifamily projects are not going to be your typical families in here. This is going to be more of an urban style, and therefore more of a young and single and less kids in these multifamily projects. So I'm not worried about it from a school district standpoint. That's a positive for me. The urban style itself is a much better look than I think some of the garden style that we've seen, and has negative reputation and connotations to it. And the mere fact that there were nobody standing up here saying they were against it, there are no neighbors really to be bothered by this multifamily, additional multifamily. So I rest easier with those items. On the con side, we're going to go yet again with another multifamily rather than for lack of a better term, senior care. I think y'all called it continuing care, and I would love to see that in our neighborhood as well. So I'm sorry that that's not going to happen, or doesn't get the market conditions aren't allowing it as well. I will say now from in pre-November of 2015, I was on this board when Modern Ivy came, when Water Lights came, when to the board, when the presidential heads. I think we went through workshop. I don't think they ever came to the Planning and Zoning Commission that I recall. May have. But as well, when Ivy District came, 2014, 2015, in that time frame, my comment then was that I would not support it if the multifamily was not phased in. There were a lot of grand promises from the group, from the owners, that basically said, we're going to put in office, we're going to put in all this huge stuff, great positive things, and oh yeah, we're going to have a multifamily in the back. And I stated then that I could not support something that wasn't phased in. Everybody always touts the retail portion, the this, the that, the office, and then oh yeah, there's the multifamily. You can look at Cullen, the northeast corner of Cullen and McHard, and we were sold a bill of goods. I'm not insinuating you're doing that. I'm just saying that we were sold that there was going to be a multifamily, and there was going to be all this retail and office space along Cullen and McHard, especially when that intersection was completed and the improvements were done. We were going to see this grand plan, and what we have is a multifamily with an office building that's got one tenant in it, Berkeley Eye, and that's it. And the 75% of the building is empty. So pardon me for being a little jaded, but what I'm hearing now is we built the multifamily first. I was pulled off the board at that time, so I didn't get to see this in early 2016, but I would have not voted for it for the reason that there is a multifamily currently and there's no other use. And if I'm hearing you say that the reason that you're coming into town with a change for more multifamily is because you're not having success with continuing care, I'm concerned that if you pulled up the site plan, what's facing the freeway is office product. And right now, and after COVID, there's no office product to speak of being built or financed. So I'm here to tell you, 2 years from now, I think you're going to be coming back and wanting that to be multifamily as well. That's my assumption based on everything else. So I don't mean those to be harsh comments. I'm just telling you where I was back then and what I think is going to happen now. As for the retail that's being added, I commend you for that. I don't find that a necessity at all. I don't really believe you're in a location that warrants a successful retail below multifamily. I mean, at 359 units and the other one being 300 some odd units, okay, so we have 700 plus units with not a lot of drive traffic until the rest of the site gets developed or that one to the north gets developed. I think that retail will struggle. I used to have a sandwich shop. We needed 125 customers a day. I used to have 4 of them, unfortunately. We needed 125 customers a day, and I'm fearful that whoever you bring in is not going to get those 125 customers a day. So I'm just concerned when I hear that retail's going below, and you were probably pushed to develop with retail. So if that's the case, I'd more than entertain you being able to pull that out. But I'm one opinion out of 6 today. So those are my comments. I'm still on the fence on how I vote. I mean, the pros and cons weigh heavily on me. And but if I was ever going to pick a multifamily developer, you would be right up there at the top of the list. So thank you for that.
The only thing I got to say about it is reading on it, it was originally slated for condos and for the older care type facility, being that it's condos and that's what the majority of what it was going to be. I don't really have a problem with it. To me, condo is just an apartment anyway. So, but has anybody got any more? Okay, seeing none, going to call for the vote. All those in favor, sign by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. All right, carries 5-1. That brings us to item 2, consideration and possible action, zone change application, zone 24-08. A request by Owen Management Systems, LLC applicant on behalf of Great Opportunities Diversified, LLC owner for approval of a zone change for 1.1525 acres of land from Neighborhood Services District to Townhome Residential, located at the southeast corner of Orange Street and Woody Road. Can I have a motion for approval in a second, please?
So moved. McDonald.
Fortis, second.
Okay, thank you. So that leads us to staff report.
Thank you, Chair. So as stated, this is for a zone change from neighborhood services to the townhome residential district. It has a future land use category of medium density residential that Lower Kirby Urban Center is a copy paste error. So please don't look at that too deeply. It is definitely not in Lower Kirby. There were 33 written comments that were received by staff in opposition of this, and then there were 2 phone calls against. This property, as you can see, is currently zoned neighborhood services. It's at the corner of Woody and Orange Street. It backs up to residential R2 on 3 sides, and then it's across the street from a defunct planned development that has a residence on there. Again, for the future land use plan, you can see it's medium density residential. There is Woody Park across the street, followed by some more medium density residential, and then industrial across Orange Street. So characteristically, this area has some large lot single family residences. There is Woody Park, as mentioned, across Woody Road. And then some single-family residences within the Willowcrest subdivision, again to the east. Going through the history of this site, it was annexed in 1960, and the property is currently undeveloped and is not a platted piece of property. So taking a look at a couple views, you can see it is indeed undeveloped. And you can see a part of the pipeline that cuts across the front of the lot right there at the north corner there at Orange and Woody. And then taking a look across Woody Street, you can see the length of the property. So staff reviewed this based on a variety of existing plans in our development code and the utilities. We found that this met the medium density residential future land use plan designation, and that it, as it fronts onto Orange Street, which is a major collector with sufficient width, and Woody, which is a minor collector that has to be widened, and that Francis is a local street. All of these basically point towards having a residential classification. With the development code, since the property is currently undeveloped, any future development would be required to meet the minimum standards of the Unified Development Code, and that the subject property does indeed have access to city utilities. So looking at the zone change criteria that the Unified Development Code lays out, this meets all 4 of the standards for approval through the UDC. So with that, staff found that there weren't any major things sticking out for approval criteria, and that it's consistent with the comprehensive plan and the future land use designation. And with that, staff recommends approval of the zone change from neighborhood services to townhome district. Staff will pass, or Chair, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Martin. That brings us to applicant presentation. Is the applicant present?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Courtney Cheney. I'm with Owens Management Systems. We are actually representing our client, Great Opportunities Diversified. The clients are proposing for a townhouse development for 4plexes. I know that sounds scary at first to everyone when you hear the word townhomes, but one of the things that we are wanting to do is to have a community meeting just to kind of really address some of the concerns and things that may kind of have you on the fence about what might be coming soon. With that particular property, we aren't planning to build until it comes to the 4th quarter of this year. But one of the big things that we did want to really reiterate is that community is very, very important to us and our client. And we do want to get an opportunity to really speak with everyone because we do understand there was a lot of objections, but we do want to get a chance to really talk to the community and see what some of those concerns are. That way we can kind of shed some light and give you a better idea of what's actually going to be there. I know when we kind of hear townhomes, we immediately think, okay, this is going to bring property value down, or this is going to be a lot of traffic or anything like that. So that's definitely a lot of things that we really want to kind of go over with the community. But other than that, we are planning for 4plex developments. on Zero Woody.
Ma'am, would you state your name and address? I'm sorry, that's my fault. I should have caught that in the
No
beginning.
worries, no worries. My name's Courtney Cheney, and our address is 12401 South Post Oak, Suite H in Houston, Texas, 77045.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Persons who wish to speak, just speak for or against this.
Before we move on, I just want to make sure with the folks in the communications tower that the display is okay. I don't know if it's on our side or,
Display's fine. I've got it queued up for the 3-minute timer, knowing that
thank you, appreciate it.
Anyone wishing to speak for or against this amendment, go to the podium, state your name and your address. Have you filled out a green sheet?
Chair, we have a stack for you to call up, sorry.
if anyone else has a green sheet that they want to turn in, just raise it up and I'll come get it from you.
Okay, I'll call up each one as they come. Glenn Pemberton.
My name's Glenn Pemberton, 5005 Francis Drive, Pearland, Texas. I got a question. How come I'm 10 houses from this, and this is the first I heard about was this weekend. We didn't get no notice, no nothing. And I'd like to know if this is going to be a Section 8 housing, or is it going to be a regular townhome? And the traffic right now on Francis is bad enough, and y'all want to put how many people in this thing? This ain't going to work. This ain't going to work. The sewer's lousy where we are. The power's lousy where we are, and you want to put more people in here? I don't see what the heck y'all got planned. Why is it being done like this? And that's about all I got to say, but it should not be put in our neighborhood. Put it in somebody else's.
Thank you. Ann Matilski. Did I butcher that?
Metelsky. Yeah, I live at 2102 Rose Road. My house would be directly in my backyard. And so, yes, I'm very concerned about safety and traffic. Because anybody's familiar with Woody. Woody's a very small, narrow road, and it's only 1 acre of land. It's not very much land to be putting on a whole townhome, and where are all the cars going to park? They'll be coming to stay there and visit there. There's just not going to be, there's no room. No room for any of that. So I'm concerned about safety. And of course, I am worried about our property values coming way down with this being directly in my backyard.
Thank you. Just so y'all know, we can't converse with y'all, but there's people taking notes and stuff, and we'll make sure that your questions get answered. Curtis Garner.
Hi, I'm Curtis Garner, 5400 West Orange Street. So this would be kind of catty-cornered for me. I represent a numerous amount of people. I don't think you guys want to hear all the people I'm representing. If you do, I can give you a list. At the time.
He's only speaking here on behalf of himself tonight. He's not the chair of an association. Otherwise, we wouldn't be hearing from everybody else.
So, yeah, I oppose, obviously. One of the reasons is obviously inconsistency with zoning. I don't know this medium density, how a townhome project would qualify as medium density, but the staff says it does. So that's one disagreement, is it's inconsistent with the zoning that's around it right now. It is 1.1 acres. It does have a pipeline that makes building impossible on a third of this acre. You could probably get by with maybe a driveway, but you're not going to be able to build on top of the pipeline, and that's going to take off at least a third. So now we're talking maybe 0.6 acres if we could build on. So now we're talking multifamily on 0.6 of an acre. The land to be developed is going to be on the south side. It's not going to be near Orange Street because the pipelines are there. So you're going to have to access through Woody Street, and you're going to have access Francis. And we already discussed the problems with those roads. The sewer problem, 15 minutes ago, I just got a call from the city asking how bad the sewer is because there is a serious sewer problem. They put in extra pump stations. They've done, for 15 years, they have fought this. So the sewer is a problem. They can't even keep up with what they have. That's just a side note. Actually, I just got the phone call just a few minutes ago, so that's the only reason I brought that up. So yeah, inconsistency, obviously property value depreciation. I seriously doubt the constructors are actually going to maintain the property. Are they going to sell it? Is this going to become rental units? Are they going to be individually owned townhomes, or is this going to be one managing group and it becomes rental property? So, and who knows what it's going to be compared to what it's going to be in the future. You know, I mean, they have great plans in the beginning, but 15 years from now, we got issues. So yeah, I oppose for those reasons right there: inconsistent zoning, lack of infrastructure, even though the city has reviewed it and said it's fine, and property depreciation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Joy Farmer.
I need to state my address.
Yes, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Okay. It's Joy Farmer, 3205 Lee Circle. I oppose this. My daughter lives in Corgan North, and she and I own the home together. And there is already a lot of traffic that comes down Goodrich. I believe this will create even more traffic. I know that recently Willowcrest the streets and drainage were redone, and we have no idea yet whether flooding has been taken care of. It has been known to flood for years, and so that is a big concern. Again, is this going to be Section 8? Are these going to be owned properties or rental properties? What benefits does this have to the community? And again, there are 3 pipelines that go across there. Woody Road is in poor condition, and additional traffic will deteriorate it even more. And while school is in session, the parent drop-off and pickup backs up past Cunningham on Woody, and it creates a hazard. You can't see to get out of Corgan North, and that's a real concern. And then at the moment, the Great Opportunities Diversity has owned this land since 2021, and it looks like it hasn't been mowed since then. It's not being maintained now, so will it be maintained once something is built on there? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Farmer. Nicholas, and I'm going to butcher this one, Caballero? I didn't, Dick.
Good evening. Nicholas Caballero III, 5106 Francis Drive. I live right across the street from the lot in question. Yesterday, I didn't even really know about this. I received a letter this weekend, and I wasn't even going to come, but I said, this is my neighborhood, and I have to speak up if, to see what's going on. I think my concern is that we don't even know what this is going to look like. I mean, how many units are going to be? Are there 2-story single units? I mean, there's, where's going to be the entrances, the exits, all this stuff. I mean, we have not seen anything. I have not seen anything, and like I said, I live right across the street from this property. For the past 2 years, I mean, we've had construction. I've got the brunt of it because, like I said, I'm right across the street We had construction, mud, dust, trash. My house would shake every time construction people would go by, and I'm, I hate to say it, but shell shocked. It's like every time I hear the trash people come, I'm like, oh gosh, more construction, here we go again. And it's just, we don't know what's going on. And I'm also, like, the homes we live in, were built in the 70s. One thing I like about our neighborhood is that we all have a home with personality. We have yards, we have backyards, and I'm looking out for my neighbors on Rose Street. I don't know if this development is going to be right against their fence, so that's some of the concerns that I have. And I just, we need more information before we can just say yes to this, because we don't know, we don't even see a plan of how this is going to look. So that's my concern, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Richard Dickman.
I'm Richard Dickman. I live at 2110 Rose Road. This is literally my backyard. All right. Further up, I guess, Woody towards Francis, not Francis, but towards Orange. You can't build there. So back towards Francis, there's two houses. The one next door to me that's on the corner, and then my house. That's the only place you could probably build behind them. All right. So I don't want a multi-story building behind my house. Okay. I love the sunsets I can see from my backyard. One of the reasons why we bought this house. All right. I don't need multiple people living in a small area behind me. Okay. I don't want to see that. The riffraff that comes with all that. We already have enough of that stuff on the other side of Makawa and in that area. The traffic is terrible in our area already. It's with the schools. The park's beautiful back there behind it. We don't need to trash that out and tear that up either. Let's see. My fence is, when I tell you my fence is on that property, my fence is literally, it's in the easement, and that's where the fence originally was. So am I gonna have to move my fence back into my yard? How do we determine easements? How do we do this? Now, if it's a single family home, 1,800 square foot, like the rest of the houses that are in that neighborhood, hey, that's great. No problem. You can only build 2 of them, right? But a multifamily, I have no idea how that would even work. And I don't want to see a big, tall building with somebody looking down in my backyard. That's what I got. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Miss Jennifer. You're going to have to state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Denal. I live at 2307 Halbert Drive. I just want to start off, I am opposed to this. I have grown up in the house that I live in now. And so this neighborhood has just become my home, like my entire life. And I, as many of our neighbors, had only found out about this. I found out about this yesterday. And so what bothers me, as another gentleman said, this affects our entire neighborhood. Why were people only 200 feet away from the area notified? So I personally went around to several of my neighbors and said, hey, did y'all know this is going on? And they were like, we had no idea. And these are people that have lived in the neighborhood 20, 30 years. So my main concerns are the traffic. Living on Halbert, we're already a cut through for people that are going to the school. People are speeding down my street, running the stop signs. You know, people have their grandchildren playing in the streets. You know, you have to be careful. And that just brings up concerns for people cutting through Rose or cutting over on Francis. And not even to mention, there are no sidewalks on Woody as it is right now, and it is in not great condition. So adding more infrastructure to our area, to me, just doesn't make any sense. Also, we did just recently have the drainage. You know, they redid all of our sidewalks, they redid all of our streets. I can tell you just personally, and not this is a different issue, but in my driveway, there's a dip. I got a puddle of water, you know, that sits there for 2 days. The construction that was done in our neighborhood, redoing the roadways and stuff, doesn't seem to have been at the quality that we were promised. So, as somebody else also said, we don't know what building more, adding more concrete is going to do to our area and flood it even more. You know, I don't know. The safety is also an issue. I said I've grown up in this neighborhood. I have no problem going walking at night. You know, I know most of my neighbors. And not to say that, I don't know. I'm opposed. I don't really know what else to say just besides I'm opposed. And I just don't want to have the people on Rose affected either, because I did think about that. Having people just peering in your backyard. You know, if somebody's a 2-story and, you know, in these townhomes, a privacy fence isn't going to keep their privacy. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Pamela Kennard.
I'm Pamela Kennard. I'm at 2206 Willow Boulevard, just a tad away from where we're talking about. I just have a quick question for the Great Opportunities Diversified. What interested you in this property? Okay. Just curious about that. What interested you in that property? Because that's probably why we don't want it developed. Okay. We like our green space. We want that there. And I don't know, since you haven't owned it for very long, if you're aware of historical flooding in the area. My parents have been there since '67, as have I, and the neighborhood floods all the time. The streets do their job by running the water off. However, with the new construction we've recently had, there's more water that stands once it supposedly has run off. Also, your proposed building, I think, no matter what you call it, townhomes, condos, multiplex, is going to be too large for that small piece of property.
Ma'am, would you please address everything to the commission?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm used to talking to a classroom. Okay, let me get over here this way. Traffic concerns. You've got the ingress, the egress, in and out. Where's that going to happen at? On Francis or Woody? You've got Woody as listed as a minor collector to be widened. If a project goes up in this area, wouldn't it make sense to widen Woody to begin with? However, I think the term minor collector is very misleading. With the new construction of the McCard extension, we are really now a cut-through area for people meeting that. In an effect to alleviate traffic on Broadway for the McCard extension, the traffic has come to our neighborhood, even more so. Traffic concerns continue from people traveling on McCowa to avoid the light at McCowa and West Broadway. They cut through on Orange to Woody. And if it's right on time, then you've got the school traffic that blocks the southbound lane of Woody waiting to pick up the children. So that's going to be a consistent problem. Orange is much more traveled now with people traveling to get to the McCard extension. Let's see. Another concern I have is being adjacent to a park area. I'm afraid the park will become a parking lot for these homes. And just the infrastructure we have already needs to be corrected. We don't need to build it and they will come and then we've got everything torn up and inconvenience the neighborhood as we just went through for a year and a half with the construction in the area.
Thank you. Terry Hendricks.
name is Terry Hendricks. My address is 2103 Rose Road. I am one that went around the neighborhood to get a petition signed and finding out that there were numerous amount of people that had no idea about this. And it was without that perimeter of the 200 feet. And I found it very, very discouraging that people in our own neighborhood did not know what was going on. And in talking with many of these in the neighborhood, these are some of the concerns that I have gathered. We feel that this development will change the character or identity of our neighborhood that we call home. The increase in population density would put a strain on our already overburdened infrastructure, leading to increased traffic congestion on Woody and Orange. We're also struggling right now with the traffic on Woody due to Jameson Middle School. And then where will the overflow of the parking of these apartments or do quadruplex be? Would it be on Francis, right in our neighbor's front yard? Would it be on Rose? Would it be even on Woody, in the Woody Park? You know, and again, these quadruplexes and townhomes will increase the burden on the drainage system. There are neighborhoods, we had several places in the neighborhood flood during Hurricane Harvey, and some still have standing water after it rains. Our concern with this development would bring a large number of low-income residents, which would lead to increased crime and a negative social effect. There are many families in the area with children. I am in the process of raising my grandchildren right now, and we go to that park all the time. I don't want to have to fight and worry about our safety, and our neighbors don't want to worry about their safety in going to the park. We have several elderly people in the neighborhood and myself, we go to the walking park. Are we going to have to worry about all of that, having to go through all of that just to get to the park? We would like to keep the replacing of the, it would also drastically alter the aesthetics of this area, replacing this open space with an imposing, permanent, and high-density housing complex. And with this rezoning, would it be a backdoor to allow other projects like a gas station or a quick shop that's going to be in our neighborhood? We have a concern about the property value also, that this influx of low-income residents would result in a decline in our property value. In conclusion, I strongly urge, as well as many people that I have spoken to, and I have a petition, we strongly urge that our Planning and Zoning Commission reject this proposed zone change.
Thank you, Ms. Hendricks. Keegan Montecillo. Monso.
My name is Keegan Monso. My wife and I live at 5112 Francis Drive, about 300 feet from the proposed lot. So I'm here on behalf of myself, my wife, and our baby boy on the way. We're new homeowners. We've moved in a couple years ago. We got married recently, and we've worked hard to get to the place that we're at. We've worked really hard to be able to purchase a home, which is difficult right now, and we're so blessed to be afforded that opportunity. And so we've worked hard, and we've invested a lot, and we don't want to see that taken away. It's no secret that Pearland is growing, and so in the short term, it seems that multi-family housing, might be a solution. But I would urge you guys to really consider the long-term adverse effects that this would have on our community. As many have already alluded to, can reduce our property values by up to 10%. And that's a pretty big blow with everything else and property taxes going up and everything else that we have to deal with. And so to share a brief example from a friend of mine, recently moved from the Pearland area to a very similar city in Nashville. And they moved to a townhome because that's what they were able to get into in a short little move. And suddenly all this multi-family housing started sprouting up around them. Crime rate shot up. Their truck got broken into a dozen times. There were shootings happening around with their young children in the home. And so they were forced to move 45 minutes outside of the Nashville area into a safer place. And so we've seen what the impact of multifamily housing can have on established communities. But beyond the statistics and the facts, I grew up in Pearland. My wife grew up in Pearland. We've spent our entire lives in this city. We love this city. We love this community. We love our neighbors, many of whom are here today. And multifamily housing can be beneficial, but not here. And so we urge you to consider the long-term effects. We chose to settle here because it's a unique neighborhood. It's safe. We're proud of it. And more importantly, it's filled with really good people. And so we knew when we bought our home that this could be the place that we would one day raise our children. And as life goes, sometimes that day would come a lot sooner than we anticipated. But the proposed development threatens to disrupt that environment. And we want our child, my wife and I, we work hard, we pay taxes. We want our child to grow up in a safe environment that we were fortunate to grow up in as well, right here in Pearland. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Arthur Broussard.
Thank you. My name is Arthur Broussard. We live at 2111. I'm old school. It's Rose Road. Someone chose to rename it Rose Street, but it's been Rose Road for 47 years to me. We raised our 4 children there. They went to school there. As I say, we've been there since 1977. We're right on the corner of Rose and Francis. My first question to you, and you may not address it right now, but maybe at the end of this, maybe you could just shed some light on it for me. We're a residential neighborhood. Someone chose to zone this residential some years back. My question to you, do we not have property in Pearland that is zoned multifamily dwelling? When we moved here in '77, Pearland was a one red light town. We were a small town. We enjoyed our neighborhood. There weren't many families with kids when we moved here, but we did what we could to improve that. We had 4 of them. But and 3 of our 4 kids still live here in Pearland. We have 5 grandchildren. We use the park there on Woody. And I know you've heard it from each and every one of us, but it's same song, second verse. I mean, sometimes trying to get to the park, you have to watch for the traffic on Woody. And, you know, we put something else there on Woody that's more traffic for our kids and our grandkids to have to look out for crossing Woody to get over there to the park, to enjoy the park. It's a nice little park. We appreciate that Pearland finally did something with that piece of property. But I don't know, I could sit here and talk all day just like the other folks have, but I think y'all are getting the idea that the majority of us here are not in favor of it. We're a single family neighborhood. We'd like to keep it a single family neighborhood. And I appreciate y'all's time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Dustin Daughtery.
Good evening. My name is Dustin Doherty. I live at 5102 Francis Drive. Some of you might know if I open up my front door, this is exactly what I see. I live on the corner. As we all witnessed earlier, there was just an action passed to have a massive multi-home facility or multi-family facility put in within Pearland. I think there's plenty of opportunities for multi-home facilities already. Several contacts, friends moving to the area have had absolutely no issues finding places to rent and live in. I strongly oppose this townhome movement. If you take a look around this community and you just look around this room, you see a mix of seniors, young families, people who've been here for several years. Personally, I'm a second generation owner of that house. My wife's parents, or my wife's grandparents owned the house originally, and the area means a lot to her. I'm a transplant from Dallas. I grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but I now call this place my home and have for the past 15 years. What we're looking at here is 1.15 acres of land, and it's currently neighborhood service, I believe, which means all transactions need to be held inside, so that would kind of limit a gas station from my understanding. And we want to add fourplexes to a 1.15 acre lot, 2-story, that overlook into people's backyards, and that's in concern for people's property that's not my own. I open the front door and this is what I'm going to see. If we do pass this, and this is something that gets put in, is the property company responsible for putting retention walls up to keep this out of our neighborhood? I don't think it's something that we want in our neighborhood. When you see these young families, you see families that are building homes, that are updating their homes, putting value into their property. You see these seniors living and moving out of these homes they put a lifetime in, and I don't think we need to disturb what is already there. We have 1.15 acres. At what point in time does a landowner, as a city council, as people, do we need to look at this land and say, maybe we don't need to develop it? For the betterment of everybody in this community, Woody Road has already become a problem. I live on the corner and I take my son over to the park almost every night to practice baseball, to play in the park, to go for a walk with my wife, and it is a danger to cross that street. And we want to add fourplexes in. We see how the duplexes go across McCalla, where you have one bedroom that now has 15 cars parked in the front yard. I don't want that in my neighborhood. And I don't think any of these people do, and I think there's a larger majority of that neighborhood that don't want to either. Putting up a sign with a QR code is not enough. There needs to be something, it needs to be said, it needs to be brought out. You need to knock on people's doors if you're going to do something like this. And I know it is not against y'all, but there needs to be more awareness on this, and I do not approve of it. And like I said, at what point in time do we need to look at a piece of land and just say, there is no need to develop this? Thank you.
Okay, anyone else wishing to speak for or against this? Go to the podium, state your name and address.
Joy Farmer, 3205 Lee Circle. I pulled up the account on the Brazoria County Appraisal District, and it shows that the city of Pearland owns 0.0072 of that property. Can you tell me what portion of that belongs to the city? Thank you.
Thank you. Asking for the second time, anyone wishing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak for or against this item? Seeing none, that moves into commission discussion.
Just for clarification, Martin, townhomes will be on individual lots, 3,000 square feet.
Sorry, Commissioner McDonald. Yes, a townhome is a minimum standard for a 3,000 square foot lot.
So they're single family dwellings.
Correct. A townhome is classified as a single family dwelling unit.
The maximum height built in any of the single family residential, whether R 1, 2, 3, 4 is 35 feet.
Correct. The townhome district has the same height through maximum.
So anybody can go into that neighborhood and buy a lot and build the same house, same size house, same height as what maximum could be proposed for this.
Correct.
For engineering, is the infrastructure in place? I mean, there's been a lot of concerns about the road, about drainage. It talks about in the memo that it'll be widening. This lot is only 125 feet deep, which are 110. So you take a little bit more, then you get into setbacks. It doesn't leave a whole lot of developable land. So I just want to know. I mean, obviously, the city's not supposed to allow development in an area where the infrastructure can't handle it. I'd just like to make sure you believe the infrastructure's in place.
Sorry. That's something that I would have to look into a little bit more. I know there are some plans for the expansion or, I guess, upgrade of Woody Road. Not too full aware of how long those plans are, but that's definitely something I could look into.
Thank you. I can appreciate the thought expressed tonight about green space, but I think like everybody here, you feel like you have the right to do with what you want to with your property, and somebody owns this property and they have rights by the state, by the city to develop it. Now they need to obviously meet our rules, but if you want to keep a green space, then go buy the property. Go ask, put a bid in, get your group together, make an offer. It'll stay undeveloped. I would say my biggest concern right now is I haven't seen a site plan. I don't know what's proposed, what would work realistically. If we're even going through this, is it just an exercise in rezoning, or is there an actual project that could be built here? It's kind of my concern right now. So I'll ask the applicant, do you have a site plan?
Hi, thank you. So the site plan is actually in progress right now. We did recently change it from triplexes to fourplexes. One of the things that are a part of the site plan is making sure that we do keep quite a bit of open space for green areas. So it's not just going to be completely townhomes. We would like to be able to actually supply a copy of the site plan to the community as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission to review, so that way they can see kind of the different the plans for the open space as well as the plans for the actual floor plan of the home.
I mean, we're scheduled to vote tonight, so if you want to give us more information, I mean, tonight's not to do it, or you can ask to postpone, I guess. Would you care to postpone consideration?
Yes, we would like to postpone. That way we can have time to actually have a community meeting.
Yeah, I think we have some questions that we can postpone it. How many units are you looking at right now total?
So as of right now, with the ordinances, we're looking at roughly about 8 to 12, more so on the side of 8.
And are these planned for any sort of federal housing?
No.
Market rate?
No, sir. The plan would actually be to sell the lots.
Sell the lots individually because they are individual single-family lots.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Okay. Like I said, I think my biggest concern, and I understand that we're zoning we zone the land, right? We're not necessarily zoning a project, but on a troublesome property such as this, not having at least a conceptual idea of what could be built, I think is problematic. I would say that I am troubled by the assumption I've heard tonight that simply because it's townhomes that it's going to be low income, that's going to be criminal. There are a lot of good people in Pearland who live in townhomes that pay their taxes and work here and raise their families here. You can raise your family in a rental property. You can create a home and add value to your community in a rental property. But as the applicant said, these are to be sold. And just like any property in your neighborhood can be sold and then rented out, that would be available to anybody who bought a property here. So I was a little taken aback by that. Multifamily, again, it's the generalizations that we heard about multifamily. Again, nobody had a problem with the 300 units we proposed adding on the west side of town. This isn't even multifamily. So, like I said, I think it would be good to consider postponing once the commission's had a chance to ask their questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Sir, go to the podium, please.
Excuse me, Chair, I'm going to have to interrupt at the moment and say that the opportunity for somebody to speak was at the public hearing portion. At this point, if y'all have questions, you are welcome to ask questions. I don't encourage you to invite anybody else to the podium.
Okay, I'm sorry. No, sir.
Let's see. First off, you've already answered the question of the number of units. I appreciate that. That was one of the things I was going to ask as well. And as to the point that Commissioner McDonald was making, he's quite accurate. Our job up here as the Planning and Zoning Commission is, it was something that was said to me the first night I was here in 2005. We vote the dirt. And what that means is, if we saw a site plan, if they were being malicious or tricky or whatever word you want to say, the applicant or the owner could come in here and say, well, this is what we want to do. Look at all these pretty plants and trees and whatever. We just want a few townhomes. If it's zoned townhomes, we cannot tie that site plan specifically to that parcel. We are voting the dirt. So the dirt would be voted townhomes. They could then sell the entitled parcel to someone else who could develop it completely different. So at that point, we're holding on to the city rules that we have in place to be the guidance documents of what the facilities or dwellings will look like. But a townhome, some people have negative connotations to it. We're building some detached, and I'm saying we. The city has allowed townhomes to be developed in Old Town Site, beautiful structures. Sullivan Brothers is the builder, and it will actually improve the area, I feel like. So I'm not necessarily saying that's what's going to happen here. I haven't seen any renditions. I don't know the company. I don't know anything other than they're asking for a townhome zoning. So that's what I had to say about that one. I also had written down, because of the applicant's first comment that she would like to visit with the community, I wish that had happened prior, but I also support a postponement thereof, because I think you all could use some education is not the right word, information to better understand what's proposed. And y'all could do that outside of this forum, and then decide for yourselves if this you want to show up and protest, not necessarily protest, but speak against or for the project. And I think it would give you all some guidance as applicants to come up with a different style project or this or that. I did have a lot of concern with parking. I had a lot of concern with access to Woody itself. I think the way this parcel lines out with 110 feet of current depth, your typical neighborhood home has 110 to 115 feet of depth. That is very typical, and that's from the right-of-way. I believe the 110 feet of depth is from the right-of-way based on the survey that we received. If that's the case, I'm assuming then that the driveways would enter and exit Woody Road. My concern was also then, well, if they're all going to hit Woody Road, how many homes would be backing into, or what have you, going in and out of Woody Road? And if the answer is 8 to 10, that's 8 to 10 extra cars. The applicant, for everybody's edification, the applicant would have to most likely perform either what they call a TIA or a TIA worksheet. So it's a TIA light. And our engineer could explain this a lot better than I can, but basically it's a traffic impact analysis. And so those 8 units to 10 or to 12, I think she said, they would by definition in the TIA would have X amount of trips per each dwelling. And so you can almost calculate, or they calculate actually, how many trips a day would be affected on Woody Road. I think honestly it would be de minimis, but that's not going to change my vote one way or the other, except just to know that they will be backing in and out of Woody Road, which to me would slow down traffic more so than if it were just put on, I think somebody mentioned a collector street. You know, if you had another street go to the collector street, what have you, and enter and exit in an organized fashion, I think it's significantly less. So I tend to ramble, as y'all heard me the first time. I'll try to get through this quick, but I was trying to take down as much information from you all as possible. What was mentioned also multiple times was that you all found out just this weekend. To tell you what happens there, the city follows state regulations, and those state regulations require that the city, as the applicant, put their application in. The city came up with a 200-foot abutters map. And so they have to notify everyone within that 200 feet. And I think they have to do it by regular mail, et cetera, et cetera. There's certain standards that you follow, certain rules and regulations that you follow. I believe the city did that. You all were notified, or some of you were notified. If you were outside of that 200-foot abutters map, that's why you didn't get notified. But I think you can thank your neighbors if you're outside of that area and you were notified. I think some of you admitted that you were farther away. You know, and a strong community tends to talk sometimes on Facebook, unfortunately, but sometimes it's the door knocking and or the neighbor to neighbor communications, and it shows a strong neighborhood when we see you all come out and you don't even live within that 200 feet. So I can appreciate that, but please understand there was no malice in not sending out word ahead of time. They were following state regulations, which they do quite well. Currently, there's a sewer issue I wrote down. I don't know that that's something that's in our purview to take into consideration truly. We're voting the dirt. The city engineer would take into account those things. And while I'm thinking of this, let me also state, we have a certain set of things that we think about. You all probably are aware when it leaves the planning and zoning, it goes to the city council, and they have a much broader set of considerations than the Planning and Zoning Commission does. So there's a second bite at the apple for the applicant. There's a second bite at the apple for the neighbors. So saying that, not asking you to come protest. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that the city council themselves has a bigger set of considerations than we do. Ownership, I was glad to hear that this is going to be a single ownership. But again, that's not something that we can guarantee. If somebody came in here, and this did happen to us recently, someone came in with a group of a townhome development on Cullen and Fight Road on the northeast corner, if I'm not mistaken. I was under the impression that it was going to be a ownership style, and instead it's going to be one of your, I'll put this in air quotes, build to rent communities. And so that's completely different than I think what's going to happen here. But nonetheless, it's a possibility. As per zoning, one of the gentlemen, I believe, spoke and said, this doesn't really fit the character of the area. That is taken into consideration when we have our discussions many times. And we call it even spot zoning on occasion if it meets that regulation. And I think that definition kind of speaks for itself, that term. But you don't want to put X in the middle of a bunch of Y's, right? Or A's and a bunch of B's, what have you. But in this case, townhome is allowed in this, I'm sorry, not allowed. Future land use plan what was stated in the future land use plan, townhome was one of those items that items, bad word. One of the, please help me.
Townhome fits within the future land use plan designation for medium density residential.
And to tag with that, and I apologize, my thinking isn't linear, as you can tell. I'm kind of more like a tornado. You should try to live inside this head. This Pearland is less of a purchase the next rancher and develop the next 500 acres. We are now more of what I say too many times here, an infill town. Unfortunately, our rules don't help support an infill development. So even if this were approved tonight, which it sounds like we're going to postpone anyways, but even if it were approved tonight, the city regulations that your developer had to build into, and maybe not because it was built in the 70s. I don't know the rules in the 70s. But what I'm getting at is that it's very difficult to develop an infill parcel like this. So there's not a lot of opportunities and uses. Price dictates a lot of the use of what's going to go on the land, as well as the physical limitations, as well as easements, which reminds me there was a 0.007 acres owned by the city, I think somebody said. Joyce? Ms. Joyce said that, and I believe that's probably going to be an easement. If somebody knows different, please feel free to interrupt me. But I'm assuming that's going to be some sort of an easement that the city has, maybe
Actually, I think it's the corner clip. It not on this slide, but on this slide, you can see that there's a little corner knockout.
Visibility.
Got it. And somebody else, I didn't write this down, but somebody else, now that we're speaking on some of this, the sidewalk itself, there was a comment made that there was no sidewalk. If this development went through, they would actually have to construct the sidewalk in the front as per our current codes and or donate to the sidewalk fund, but I don't know if that's true. Okay.
That is true.
Yes. Okay. As for no multi-story behind me, I would love to know if the rest of the community, I'm looking at aerial photos, so I didn't get a street view on my phone. I'm kind of illiterate that way. I'm assuming a lot of these homes in the neighborhood are single story. There's not a lot of two-story. And so I understand then the concern for privacy because your next door neighbor is not a two-story, right? So you're not looking up at somebody's anyways. Your privacy's pretty kept. But as to Commissioner McDonald's stance, if one of the homes unfortunately burned down or anything happened, there's nothing preventing, no city rule would prevent a two-story from going there. So just, keep that in mind. That's a right. Up to 35 feet is in the guidelines or city documents. I'm not doing very good wordsmithing here today. It is Monday. It feels like a long Monday. Someone asked, is there any other parcels zoned multifamily in Pearland? And I'm not sure if that is the case. There's a couple on the books being built currently. There's a new one tonight that just got, from the planning and zoning perspective, just got passed. It's up to city council to affirm or reject that. But there's not a lot of land zoned multifamily. Am I off there? There are a couple you can think of?
There are a few that are zoned multifamily. There are a few that are zoned for townhome. They are built out. So I would say that there's not available land that is zoned either multifamily or townhome.
So I know you're not going to believe this, but that's all I got.
I mean, just based off the simple fact that we don't know what we're getting as an end product, I would be in opposition to this. But I mean, I guess we're voting to postpone this rather than oppose it. So that's really all I have to say. I don't want to beat a dead horse.
If I could chime in, while I understand the request for postponement in some parts, I'm not exactly sure what the hope is to accomplish and whether it's the best use of everybody's time if that's what you wanted to do. If you postpone to see a site plan, they're not tied to the site plan. If you postpone to see the elevations, they're not tied to elevations. So if that's what you're hoping to get by that, those things, when you zone the dirt, it's not going to make a difference. So with the lot square footage and with our standards, we know the maximum capacity that could be built to an approximation.
I guess the question is, can this be built, right? I mean, with the size of the property, with the fact that it's on a road to be widened, is this even a project that can go forward? And that's something that staff can't answer because they haven't seen a site plan on it. And I'd also like to get an answering from engineering on the infrastructure, right? What is the width of this road? When is that going to happen? There's obviously sewer issues in the community. What would an additional 8 to 12 residential structures on this system do? Would that cause worse problems? And I think those are questions I'd like to see. Yeah, we could vote it down, but or vote up based without it. But I think it gives a fuller picture for making that decision. It allows us to know. I mean, it's zoned commercial now, right?
No, sir, it's zoned and yes, commercial, but it's neighborhood services.
So there's still a number of uses allowed by right. But then it's also, my other interest is Woody as a minor collector, and I look down the rest of it, none of the homes face onto it. So I'm assuming driveways aren't allowed on it. So if you're gonna have to put the street behind it, then the houses would even overset the neighbors behind it because you'd have the street there. But then if you put a street there, you're not gonna have room to build anything else. So is it a private drive? What are you doing? I mean, I'd like to see if it's a developable property before I take away potentially the right of the landowner to do something with it.
I completely understand those concerns. They're all valid concerns. I would suggest that the property owner should have addressed those concerns with city staff in a pre-development meeting if they didn't use that already. The infrastructure issue, they can't get a permit until they can demonstrate, until they can build the infrastructure and demonstrate that it is not going to harm anybody and that it's in place for this development. So
how about we make a motion here in a minute, and if it passes, we deal with it, and if it fails, then we'll take a vote.
Yes, sir, but if you postpone it, when we come back, because it's a postponement and the public hearing section is complete, I don't know if that's the best service. That's really where my concern comes in. Because the public hearing portion is complete, if you postpone it and you come back, it doesn't have to get posted for another public hearing, which means that the people who did get the notice and where the property was posted on site, that might not be there for the next time. And that, I don't think, is what the goal is. So if you did a straight vote tonight, based on all those concerns that you have expressed, you as the body have expressed, and it's a no vote, then that puts the pressure on the applicant to present a better picture when it goes to city council. Or it has them rethink whether or not they want to develop it with this project.
But it also, I mean, it's if we vote it down, which is what I would think would happen right now, then they go into council needing a supermajority. So at that point, it may not matter what they show or what they say, right? I mean, allowing them to come back and give us, I mean, I thought the whole purpose of a public hearing was for the commission to get information. Right?
Absolutely.
And so sometimes the information, and you prefer it to come out at the public hearing, you prefer the application to be complete. Sometimes it's not. And so we can decide as a commission whether we feel it's appropriate to allow the applicant to take the time to visit with the neighbors and to update their submittal and come back to us, or we can decide that we don't want to get that opportunity.
And again, I have no problem with that, but I would say that if that's what's going to happen, And if somebody wanted to have a postponement, then it would be in the public's interest to have a brand new application so that the person has to go through the same notification procedures, the same posting in the paper, the same 200-foot abutter. Otherwise, that part, because again, it's a public hearing, it's supposed to garner input. And I don't know if that would happen if we just postponed it.
Well, I mean, I think we garnered a lot of input tonight, but if we postpone it specifically to say the June meeting, everybody here knows it's been postponed to the June meeting, then, you know, and then they obviously had, I'm sorry, public hearing's closed. Then, you know, I mean, their concerns are heard, they're documented, we understand them, right? I just feel like, you know, the applicants asked for a postponement as well. So we have to, vote on that.
Yes, sir.
I know, I just feel like I'm debating a question with you. I don't need to be debating because it's a commission decision.
Absolutely. And I just want to make sure that when the motion comes, all the opportunities and results, or the known and unknowns, are there as they go to make that decision. I don't mean to be confrontational with you in any way whatsoever. I'm not trying to debate it. I'm just suggesting that if there is a motion to postpone and it is going to pass, then the motion to postpone should include that renotice be sent, or notice as if it was a brand new application come through, so that we can make sure that we garner the same public input, and everybody who's here tonight, or everybody who wasn't able to make it, who's watching the video tonight, has the opportunity to hear the new information whenever it comes in and decide whether or not their concerns have been alleviated or whether they want to readdress those same concerns.
Could we just continue the public hearing? We reopen the public hearing, continue it at a later date?
If you can continue the public hearing, I don't believe that same notice goes out the same way that it did with the
That
original
anybody who
application.
hasn't spoken tonight can come back and speak.
Yes, sir.
Then
Are we allowed to then ask of staff as a condition, or can we even put a condition on a postponement to re-notify the neighbors of the 200-foot abutters map? I thought that's what you said. I just want to make sure that I understood you correctly.
If you do it, well, a continuance or a postponement would end up being the same thing. I think that if you wanted to do that, you need to be very clear about what conditions you want met before it comes back, unless you say, come back on X date. I want to see these things. And those things, I think, we want to make sure that whatever those things are, those are things that are part of the criteria for approval of a zone change.
Yeah, I got something. It sounds like that we're going to head to probably a postponement with conditions. And so y'all get notified again. But the one thing that y'all need to take into consideration, I heard a lot of things talked about green space. Something's going to be built on that piece of property. Right now, they can go and you can go back and look it up on the city website, and y'all can see what things can be built in neighborhood services. And any of those things it's a slam dunk. They go to the city, they make sure they get the proper permitting and stuff, and they can build that there. It's a number of things. That's the reason why the applicant has asked for a zone change to the townhomes. But if I would really like to please do meet with the community, meet with them, lay it out before the community, because I know that we are supposed to zone the dirt, but when we have residences show up, when we have people that live in the neighborhood and they show up, that no matter what we say about zoning the dirt, the bottom line is that we take that into consideration. Whether we're supposed to or not, we take that into consideration. And this is a very strong output of citizens that y'all have got. So my biggest problem on a lot of things with this is the applicant never seems to go out and go into the neighborhood and get their input when it's going to vastly change an area that's been this way for the last 40 years. So being at that, I will entertain for a postponement, but I would like to also say that please consider the additions to it that our lawyers talked to us about. So I'll take that motion.
I think Martin had something.
Go ahead, Martin. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Thank you. For the commission's education, today is June 3rd, so we are in June. The next two meetings of the Planning and Zoning Commission are June 17th and July 1st.
What's the posting deadline for July 1st?
And Martin, I apologize. If we're gonna do a condition, if a condition gets proposed where we do mailouts again, I would, to the applicant's benefit, I would not give them a timeline. That way they have however much time it needs for them to go to the neighborhood and set up the HOA meeting and not strap them to.
That's what I would like to see.
Yeah. Just reset her.
I'm assuming from the laughter, there's no HOA or, oh.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we postpone consideration of this item until a later date, and that whatever it returns, it includes an updated application package showing the site plan, further information from engineering on proposed improvements to the infrastructure, and that that meeting be postponed or be notified as if it was a brand new public hearing.
I'm not sure if I was the one that seconded that originally, and I'll second that. I don't know that it helps that we do the same order.
As a motion to postpone is a different type of motion. You're not amending what was there. It would just be a straight motion, so it's not a motion to amend. But it sounds like you're still seconding regardless.
That is affirmative.
Okay. Does anybody have anything to talk about? All right. I'm going to call for the vote on the postponement. All those in favor, sign by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Carries 6-0, postponement. Ma'am, we can't, the public hearing's over with, so. All right, that's moving into item number 3. General location, consideration and possible action, zone change application, zone 2410. A request by Mo Kyle, applicant on behalf of 2701 Partner LLC, owner, for approval of amendments to the Province Village Plan Development on approximately 1.707 acres of land located at 2701 Pearland Parkway, Pearland, Texas. Can I have a motion to approve?
Commissioner Fuertes' motion to approve.
Commissioner Kuhn, second.
All right, that leads us into staff report.
Thank you, Chair. Let me introduce Patrick one more time. Patrick, take it away.
Thank you, Martin. So the request for you is for approval of amendments to the Province Village Plan Development on approximately 1.707 acres of land. And specifically, the amendment is to allow for one use on the property. It's to allow for the studio or learning facility for fine and performing arts use to be listed as a permitted use within the subject property and within the PD. And so the location is, as mentioned, 2701 Pearland Parkway, which is at the intersection of Pearland Parkway and Province Village Drive. The future land use designation of the property is the retail offices and services. And to date, staff has not received any comments in favor or against the request. So looking at the map on the screen, the outlined red area includes the entirety of the Province Village PD. And then the yellow outlined area is the actual subject property, that 1.707 acre tract that is the subject of the PD amendment. And so kind of some of the surrounding zonings include some general commercial to the south, as well as the Province Village PD, which is kind of abutting it on two sides. And then the center at Pearland Parkway PD is across Pearland Parkway to the west. Looking at the future land use designation of the property as well as the surrounding properties, as mentioned, the property is the retail offices and services, as well as it's abutted on three sides by that same designation to the south, east, and west. And then there's some medium density residential, which is to the north. It's looking at an aerial view of the property. We see the existing development on the property, and we see a bank to the north across Province Village Drive, a daycare to the east, a home improvement store to the south, and a shopping center to the west, which is across Pearland Parkway. So a little bit of history on the property. The original PD was approved in June 2005, and it consisted of approximately 48 acres of a mixed-use project. So it's kind of a mixture of commercial and some of that single-family subdivision that's to the north of the subject property. And there's been a number of different PD amendments that have occurred over the entirety of the PB, but specifically Amendment number 3 of the PD, which was approved in October 2014, changed the underlying zoning of this subject property from office and professional to general business district for the base zoning. And that they also added some further limitations on the specific uses that were actually allowed on the subject property. So there's actually a list in that PD stating what uses are allowed. And then a little more recently, the subject property was platted in 2014 and developed with the existing 14,950 square foot multi-tenant retail building. That occurred in 2015. And then kind of more recently, amendment number 4 to the PD kind of is what's occurring tonight. They originally came in and there was a use, the gym/health club use, which was not a listed use, and they wanted to open a gym/health club, a cycle bar. And so they had that added in July 2021. So it's kind of similar request coming back to allow for a tutoring center essentially to be allowed on the site. And so here we get a look of the property from Pearland Parkway. And so looking at some of the review criteria, the proposed amendment to add the studio or learning center for fine or performing arts use is compatible with the retail offices and services designation, as you would typically find those types of uses in retail areas. Additionally, the subject property has frontage along Pearland Parkway and Province Village Drive, which are one's a major thoroughfare with sufficient width, and the other is a major collector with sufficient width, so no right-of-way dedication would be needed at this time. And in terms of the UDC, it is a currently developed lot, and the proposed use is consistent with the purpose and intent of the PD, as well as that underlying GB zoning, which the studio or learning center use is a permitted use within the GB zoning. In terms of utilities, the subject property has access to city utilities. And so looking at the approval criteria for a PD, staff found that the request met all 7 of the criteria for approval of the PD amendment. And as mentioned, the subject property is designated on the future land use map as being the retail offices and services designation, which is consistent with. And staff is also in the opinion that the proposed use is complementary and should not detract from the enjoyment or value of the neighboring properties or lease spaces. Staff therefore recommends approval of the proposed PD amendment limited to the 1.707 acre tract for the applicant's request. And that concludes staff's report.
I'm going to ask anyway. Is the applicant present? Seeing none, persons wishing to speak for or against. You won't speak? Persons wishing to speak for or against the second time, and for or against the third time, seeing none, we're going to open this up for commission's discussion.
I just say, I mean, obviously, I think this is an easy one. Just thinking back to the gym one we went through a few years ago, if this comes up again, can you just like go through the whole chart and just whatever's reasonable, just add it back in? Because I feel like twice having to come back to add simple little things that we weren't sure why they were ever taken out in the first place. We're just, wasting people's time and money.
It was suggested to the applicant. They were able to move faster on this than they were able to decide what else to add in. So that's on the list.
Otherwise, I'm in favor.
If I could give a little history lesson here, the staff at the 2014 and 15 era was not as progressive's not the right word, but I think today's staff is better in that it would consider, allowing the uses that are already in place to be in place. The other staff seem to be more restrictive in those things. So it's a compliment to you all. I'm not trying to dog the other staff, but I was here, I watched it, I didn't like it. I would say my piece and nobody listened, like they still don't. So I'm for it. This one's easy, but I really would like, if maybe the applicant didn't want to come up with a list, if we prompted them with a list. I know that takes staff time and effort, but it'd kind of be nice. The other example of this was the NS was where the old movie theater is, that entire area there. And it was repetitive that people, lessees would have to come in here. The landlord would have to delay renting his space while they went through the process. And it was just a drag on everybody, staff's time as well. I think at one point they fixed that, but we recommended over and over and over that they come back with just a GB instead of an NS, and I think they finally did. I don't recall if they did or not, but that was pushed.
And I just want to piggyback and say, previous staff, I think, did a lot of good work with y'all as well. So.
Oh, I was talking about 2014, way back then, to 2005, I might add.
Commissioner Kuhn, I'd just like to make a motion to approve this as presented. Oh, okay, we're good.
All right, seeing that there's no more discussion, there is no more discussion? Okay, there is no more discussion on the item. Let's call for the vote. All those in favor, sign by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Carry 6-0. That takes us to City Council update.
Quick update for y'all. So City Council saw 2 conditional use permits at their previous meeting. Y'all had saw a conditional use permit for a warehouse use on Knapp Road. That was for a furniture business. Y'all had gone with staff to recommend approval of a few conditions. City Council did approve with those conditions. So the street trees, the continuous screening along the parking area, the landscape islands, removal of the barbed wire fence, and the inability to have outdoor storage. So City Council did see some good value in that and recommended approval and passed that conditional use permit. So we look forward to seeing them make improvements on that site and get that site back into commerce. Then we heard 3419 Veterans. That was for the hair salon, reactivating that site after it had gone abandoned. And the last thing, that did get approval, in case you couldn't catch the tone there. The last thing that was on that will be of interest to the Planning and Zoning Commission was approval for the RFQ for the Old Town Revitalization Plan. So that is a plan that is looking at doing a deep dive into Old Town and doing some recommendations and some good planning efforts, specifically focused on the oldest part of our town. So there will be representation from Planning and Zoning Commission on that. And when we have our kickoff meeting, we'll get a little more direction and a little more input as that moves forward. But since it just got approved, ink on the contract, I don't think it's even dried yet. So we'll let y'all know.
Okay, that brings us to Commissioner's Activity Report. Anybody got anything to report?
Just one little thing. You said the Old Town revitalization.
Correct.
Is just to understand, is Sullivan Brothers going to be, as a stakeholder, going to be on there? All right. Any P&Z members, as with the comprehensive plan? I think we grabbed a couple of P&Z members.
That's what he just said.
Yeah, and if I may, just real quick, Commissioner Fuertes. So yeah, certainly going to want to have a few of y'all participate within quorum allowments. And then, but if any of you know anyone, please send the recommendations to Martin or myself. We're putting together a list. Hoping to have the consultant wants like 40 or 50 folks on that stakeholder group, so pretty hefty. But shooting for 30 plus would be a great number, and even that's a large number for our stakeholder groups. But lots of input. Please do be looking at your schedules if you can participate, and then if you do know anyone, send them our way.
Okay, our next meeting, nobody had anything to do with the activity report? Okay. Our next meeting, P&Z meeting, will be on June 17th at 6:30 in this building, as far as I know. And unless City Council decides to do something different. And I will call this meeting adjourned at 8:26.